Good morning, Victor. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I am good too. It's been a little while since we had a conversation, so uh, interesting things have happened. The follow up to your session on ONDC has been the publication of your article. Right, congratulations on that. So interesting format that we talk about something, and then there's also a paper that follows it. So uh,
Yeah,
very interesting way of rounding things up. Right.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Great. So today, as we discussed, we'll talk about Shark Tank, and this is purely going to be our take on it, right? As we
Abs-
highlight some of the sessions, at least most of the sessions are our take on it, but then some things are our takes, so we don't need to classify them as our take on it. But so going ahead, Shark Tank, right? When you talk to someone in a B school, for them, Shark Tank, or at least for aspirants, Shark Tank becomes like uh, an aspiration, right? Have a startup idea, pitch it to someone, get funding for it, and be successful, right? So, to start off, would you want to start and give some background to what are your thoughts on it, and then I follow up?
Yes, yes, sure. So, yeah, as you rightly pointed out, I think it has become quite a sort of an aspirational brand in India, and I guess globally as well. So, I mean, because it comes on TV. So that's the thing. I mean, there are people watching it, there are eyeballs, discussions happening around it in your community, in social media, everywhere. So it has become a source of, it has become an aspirational brand. And the point is, not everyone who pitches in front of the sharks do get to do have the opportunity to be aired, right? I mean, not all pitches are being aired. So I mean, even the sharks should not know, even the contestants should not know which episodes would be aired, right? Because it's totally a creative call taken by the channel, taken by the producers. So, but yeah, if you are aired, if the episode is aired, if your pitch is aired, it brings in a lot of eyeball, and it's good for business. It's good for business, at least in the short term. Usually, it has been seen that the products, whichever has been pitched, they tend to see a spike in sales, at least for the short term. Now, how they maintain it is a different question altogether. But it is good for the business, and in fact, there are many founders who want to feature on Shark Tank, not necessarily for the funding sort of part of it. Perhaps they may not even need funding, but they just want that eyeballs. They
Free
want that push for
publicity.
their business, right?
True.
I mean, there have been such founders where the shark themselves have pointed out that you don't really need funding from us, right? That because there are founders who have already taken funding from VCs, right? And now
Okay.
they are coming for angel investing. So it does not make sense. But then obviously, once you're on TV, it makes good business sense. So that's there. But beyond this, what is, I guess, a bigger contribution of Shark Tank, and I'm saying this specifically from an Indian context, is it has brought in conversations around entrepreneurship, brought in conversations about startups, about businesses in mainstream. I mean, people are talking in on dinner table. People are talking among themselves, right? When friends meet, Shark Tank tend to be one of the topics around which they talk around, right? Which was really not the case. I mean, yes, social media is powerful in our country with internet penetration happening. All that is good, but yet, if you look at tier two, tier three cities, it is still TV that rules, right? It's still TV that rules. I mean, if you're on TV, your social stature goes up, right? So that's where I think Shark Tank has really contributed, where people are. So one more thing is, like, people are more aware of what goes in the startup world, right? Yes, it is more. What is being shown is a more fancier version. The struggles, the tribulations, all of those obviously are not shown, and that's there. But the point is, at least the terminologies, the know-how, or the things that someone should know of. before starting a business. All those conversations, that awareness, that knowledge part of it, at least is there in the mainstream uh, right now. And I think that's a big contribution. Today, we talk of more than 100 unicorns. This is an excellent feat, right? I mean, in 10 years, 10, 12 years time, we have now in a decade's time 100 unicorns, and we need to go even beyond that. But if you look at the unicorns, it's mostly tier one city center, right? It's mostly the Bangalore's, the Mumbai, the Delhi, where this unicorns are centered. And even if you look at the target market for these unicorns, these are really the top 2 to 3%, or say the top 5% of India. There's an enormous potential in the MSME sectors in the tier two and tier three cities, where I think, given the power of the internet, it's now possible to build sustainable, strong businesses sitting in a tier three city as well, right? And there are founders who are doing it, right? Now, this program is right now, I guess, a hope for such founders, right? Because there are stories that is coming that are being covered, do not necessarily come from the top tier one cities. They come from tier two, tier three cities. They come from villages, and they are doing their own thing, and they're coming with profitable businesses, right? So that's a big hope. And with the awareness that is being there among the consumer base as well about Shark Tank, about smaller businesses. I think it also, in a way, opens up market for many of these companies, right? So I think that's a bigger contribution of Shark Tank. Yes, there are few things which we might be critical, and maybe we'll discuss in a conversation. But I want to know your take on this, about the positives, or how you see Shark Tank influencing our culture. Okay.
True. In fact, I agree with what you said, and I mean, let this not be a pat your back, you pat my back sort of thing. Not about agreeing with everything, but um, I think the good thing that Shark Tank and a show like this is doing is that it is it is sort of bringing forth that entrepreneur startup mentality among people, right? Um, what our education system, right, with all the positives and the negatives that it has, is not something that actually orients people to think like businessmen, right? Which is why we have that common notion that people from certain communities make very good businessmen, right? That is because in the family they're given that sort of an upbringing which sort of puts that mindset, because our education system is actually not contributing to increasing that entrepreneurship um, zeal, right? Uh, our education system has always been focused towards creating workers, not so much as thinkers or maybe people who are creating stuff. Now, looking at all that, I think Shark Tank is doing this really good thing. People are, I mean, there's another very typical feature that I feel that most South Asians have, which is they beat around the bush a lot, right? And for something like this, which is what I keep telling my students about, is you need to know how to create an elevator pitch, right? If you can tell your entire story with your value proposition front ended within a minute, right? Within 2 minutes, right? That is then the crux of your personality, your business. Because if you do not have something that you can state front as a value proposition and then build the case around that, then you do not have full clarity about your own business plan, right? And I think that is what that is one thought or one exposure that Shark Tank is bringing to Indian youth, right? They are now starting to think in a focused manner. They know that, okay, if I have to pitch to someone, if I have to explain my idea to someone, I mean, the old thing about explain it like you're explaining it to a 5-year-old, or explain it like you'd explain it to your grandmother, all those are simplifications. But then the focus that you need, that to tell an investor, right, who you expect to have his skin also in the game, right, to get that person convinced, that value proposition, that profitability expectation, right? That is something that this is bringing into conversations. Social media is doing one very good thing, which is with all the memes and the jokes that they're creating about Shark Tank, at least a broader set of people are getting aware that okay, there is something like this. And then with people, with controversial people also on the panel, um, there is a significant amount of PR which is getting generated. All that, what that ends up doing is that instead of becoming a metro-centric show again, right, this is percolating to other parts, and then therefore there'd be more people seeing this, thinking, right? And I think the next level of growth, right, and I might sound like a politician, but then the next level of growth has to come from the hinterland, right? There is a lot of scope for growth as far as the metros are concerned, but then beyond that, the actual tsunami is when you have the hinterland sending in ideas, right, which are successful, maybe locally successful ventures, which then become national. I think those are what are required. That is what will make the entire growth story sustainable, right? And the thing about make in India, make for the world, make in India, make for India, or make in your district, make for your district, right? Let's at least start with that. And this thinking is going to get enhanced with shows like this. At least people are going to have that clarity. Okay, I need to know which is your typical, what you expect at the end of an MBA or a BBA or whatever, a management course. You want to know, how do I pitch my business? What do I need to take care of? All those things are in a soft, showy manner, right? Created and enacted in front of you, and therefore, I think it's bringing that little dose of entrepreneurship into the Indian mindset, right? And often people watch an action movie and then they get a little physically charged, right? Their movements, their walking style changes after they've watched an action movie, right? Similarly, something like this, and the good thing is that this is coming on a weekly basis or whatever frequency. It is going to exercise their mind to start thinking on those lines, and which is what is required also for our economy right now. So those that was at least the positive side.
Absolutely. So yes, these are the positive, of course, but then obviously no, nothing is perfect as such, right? I mean, and there are critics around it who do tend to say a lot of things, and let's just maybe take out one by one what those things are. So I think one of the bigger criticism that the show faces is that startup the very startup world is being romanticized, right? I mean, the glory, the fame is being shown. It's being shown that it's a very fashionable thing. But anyone who has been through this journey know that it's much beyond that. I mean, it's just the surface that you see.
Survivor
Most
bias.
of the, yes, survivor bias, and I mean, 9 out of 10 startups do struggle, and maybe 7 out of 10 startups eventually end up failing in the first 3 years of starting up. So the point is, uh, the the, uh, the fame, the glory, that's all good, but then when you're an entrepreneur, you know every day is a struggle, right? And that part is not being shown. And this might send a wrong message to a lot of budding entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs who want to start up just by looking at the fame and glory, just by looking at how romanticized this is, and without really understanding what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Okay, so what do you think? Your take on this? I mean, do you think that a show like this has the bandwidth to address this issue, or there's something that they cannot, given the format of it or the underlying purpose of it? What's your take on this?
So I think um, see, a format like this, if it starts showing all the failures and stuff, if it starts showing real life, right? Real life is not show worthy, right? Real life is, and then what will end up happening is that you'll convert Shark Tank also into what Dance India Dance and what all those other singing shows that you have where you show people's misery and plight, and then get them a little sympathy and things like that. It'll turn into that, and which is something I don't think someone with that action orientation, right, which is what a businessman is expected to be, right? Someone with an action orientation is not going to appreciate that sort of what emotional THR, right, on screen, right? So I think that is the reality which people need to know. This format, I don't think. I mean, personally, for me, I would not be interested in seeing people talk about their failures and stuff. Or, I mean, because failures come with emotions, right? I don't want people to get emotional on a show like this, as a viewer at least. I mean, that's my take on it. Um, the fact that they show just the successful ideas, right? It, I mean, I would expect the average interested viewer to also understand that, right? Or maybe they could just have a disclaimer on the show, right? Somebody, the host, maybe just says that, okay, right, these are the successful ones. Maybe at the beginning, at the end, sometime he says he brings in that little dose of reality, but then the rest of the time, or even in the judges also can
No,
talk
but I
about it.
guess if I can interrupt you here, to be
Mhm.
fair to them, I guess they also show the pitches which are not successful. So even that
True.
is there. That part is
Yes.
there. But again, I mean, so I guess one of the things that we might have to think is what are the kind of pitches that are being selected to be aired, right?
Mhm.
And I think they, I mean, as content creators, at the end of the day, they're making a show, and which
True.
ultimate purpose is to have garner TRPs, right?
TRPs.
So, yeah, I mean that's the foundation of it. I mean that's the basis. If there is no TRP, if the people don't watch it, the entire thing goes for a toss. So that's there. So I think they also look at the kind of founders, the kind of people who are speaking, right? Their personalities, the ideas that are there. All of this indeed take, and they take a creative call on that. But I guess one of the things that what I think, and basically connecting with what you have said, that uh, where so the point is, yes, we see the pitches which are successful and also the pitches which are not successful. But beyond them, beyond this, when we come to the stories of these founders, what happens to them after they get the funding, right? Is there any way that this show can also maybe take out a subsection, something where they also show what happens or how people use that funding, right? So just to give a much more insider
Continuity.
view into this. So what do you think, your take on this? Can something be
So
like, yeah,
yeah, I think maybe once in a few episodes they should have something on those lines, right? Because ultimately making a good pitch, right, and presenting it well, right? All those are just the tip of the iceberg. There's the rest of the iceberg, which is execution, right? And how is the actual thing being executed, right? Is the shark tank, is the shark who's coming in just as someone sitting on a chair and just giving money, or is there I mean, is there some quality addition also which the shark is making, right?
yeah,
Tomorrow, if I'm going to get maybe 50 lakhs from someone, right, as an investor on a project, am I interested only in those 50 lakhs, or am I
mm,
interested in getting somebody's capabilities, right?
right,
These are supposed to be successful entrepreneurs, yeah, right?
mm, mm, mm,
So am I getting any quality
mm,
input from you, or is it just money, right? If it's just money, can maybe I might have this potential to leverage, right? Maybe I
mm,
can
mm,
take a loan,
mm,
give my
mm,
house on I mean,
mm,
take a mortgage out on my house and take a loan, right?
mm, mm,
And I mean, if it's just the money, right, and
mm,
therefore then I don't need to share my profits also.
mm,
If someone's convinced about my idea, they're putting money, but at the same time they're contributing something.
mm,
That I think would be more valuable. And if once in a while these shows show how the
mm,
sharks are contributing, and also how are the people who received the funding, how are they utilizing those funds,
mm,
right?
mm,
Somewhere that entire story comes together, which is that, okay, so there was a good pitch, there was this thing which happened, and then now what next, right?
mm,
Somewhere that what next also, it can be, I mean, and this is all a show, right? It is a show.
mm.
So in a show format also they could just bring in some snippets and show that okay, this is how the business is doing. And so we had invested I mean ABCD amounts. Now those
Mm,
ABCD amounts uh, have done their work, have done their magic, right?
mm,
Is what I would uh, expect or want the show to um,
right.
go towards. I don't know if they already do that, but I mean
Mm,
that's my take.
mm. So here, I think, yeah. So till now, we do not have that accountability yet in the from the show side. We do not know what happens after the funding, right? Yeah, you.
True.
I mean, over social media, you tend to find a story here and there that this was successful or this will happen there. But I mean, from the show side, and I think, but given the format of the show, I don't think it's really possible for them to do it. But what I also think is that since this show is becoming so powerful now, it is actually influencing the contemporary culture. Maybe there can be a spin-off from the show, uh, which shows how these startups have turned out, right? And I think this is not it there. I mean, if you look at Shark Tank US, even they don't have such a spin-off, as far as I know, right? Maybe this can be an interesting program idea where they show what happens to these startups, maybe 2 years down the line after receiving the funding, or 3 years, or maybe a year. I mean, just to show the status where it goes. That would give a more realistic picture. And since those startups have already got funding from Shark Tank, the curiosity around those startups will also be high among the viewers. So when I
True.
think that spin-off might actually work, because these are not unknown startups. Viewers would know that the startups which are being covered have already got funding from the real Shark Tank show, the signature show, and that's the reason they are being covered in the spin-off. Okay,
True.
so that would perhaps make for a much holistic picture, show the trials, the tribulations, and also the glory, the fame around it. I think that can be a good
Yeah.
idea. I don't. What's your take on this?
In fact, I was just thinking maybe they do not need to air those things, right? They could have a separate YouTube channel or something where
Hmm,
these videos are put in, where you've got the follow up, right? Those follow up videos can be created as a video bank, right? So
hmm,
people, they've seen something, and then sometime later they're able to go and check on the Shark Tank channel and see, okay, this is what happened to that business. Maybe everybody is not interested in knowing about how some business did, right? But there might be some people who might be curious. So create an
hmm.
alternative content path also for that is one suggestion. Right? I was also thinking that, see, ultimately, this is what Shark Tank is also um, creating the mentality that it's also creating is that you can um, talk smooth, right? You can present an idea and you'll get people to invest on it, right? This is just uh, this is just a fairy tale, so to say, right? People don't invest in your business so easily, right? You actually need to show people figures, you need to show people results, you need to show people. I mean, you need to demonstrate, right? Which is not something the Shark Tank format is. No, it is ultimately just a show which is uh, showing people pitch, and then they um, who's verifying all that information, right? If someone's claiming a certain amount of sales, right, is that being verified? I don't know if Shark Tank producers are actually verifying, right, that if I'm a sneaker brand, right, an alternative sneaker brand, and I'm saying that I have 1,000 units selling every month, right? Am I stating that? Am I submitting some?
No,
um,
their due diligence does happen before the
it
deal is
does.
actually finalized. Yeah, so
Okay.
I was listening to some interviews of the Sharks
Mhm.
online. So they're saying that, I mean, on the show that they show that the check is signed, but actually
True.
proper due diligence happens before the contract is actually being signed. So that happened, but
Okay.
that's
So
the responsibility of the Sharks, of the
the shark.
investors. Like the
Mhm.
show, the channel would not take any responsibility. The producers would not take any responsibility. That's the Shark their due diligence. And in fact,
Okay.
some of the deals actually do not materialize,
Mhm.
since and because some discrepancy was found in the due diligence process. So that
Okay.
happens. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then there also that accountability goes. I might just look at a business and I might say I'll invest 10 crores in your business. But then after that, I find some small error and I can move out. I've got my 2 minutes of fame as a shark who's promoting your business, but then your business actually does not get any support from me. That's also, I mean, there is that gray area still. Right. So I think people need to be made aware. There should be disclaimers, right? Which should be maybe the host's responsibility or something, or maybe Shark Tank's responsibility to make that, bring that also into the conversation, not just look at cheap publicity from certain founders, right, who are there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Uh, so about your point on putting the spin-off on YouTube, one of the reasons why I was saying that this can be a spin-off show to be aired on TV is because, again, it's also about contributing to the ecosystem, to the culture, right? Because since Shark Tank is being watched across India in different cities, even the hinterlands, that spin-off will give the hinterland, people in the hinterland, a much more realistic picture. Because if it is only on YouTube, it might not reach everyone, right? And why I think this spin-off show would be successful is because people will already be aware of the startups because they have been funded in Shark Tanks already. So I mean, this is just to, I mean, the point I was trying to make is the criticism that this show has, that it only shows the fame and the glory, the romanticizing of startup ecosystem. The spin-off show would put a more realistic picture. It would be a more what do you call a humbling ground for the people to see that the startup culture or when you get inside starting a business, it's not that hunky dory, right? That's one thing perhaps that will help. Another criticism that many people tend to voice out is this mad rush behind valuation. I mean, you have startups which are not really profitable, and or even if they earn profits, I mean, meager profits, and they're saying 2x, 4x, 5x multiples of their profit, and that's how they're deciding on the valuation without any. I mean, there's no method to that madness. I mean, what you ask and how much, where you strike a deal. It's really not valuation; it's a
Mhm.
pricing game that people pay. But then it's a mad rush about valuation. And even if you look at the sharks, I mean, the sharks in Shark Tank India, if you see, we are saying that many of them are unicorns. They have this valuation, that valuation. But if you look inside, they are not making money. They are not profitable. I mean, I have not verified this personally, but what the report says is that except for boat, that's being where Aman Gupta is a co-founder and CMO. None of the other startups are profitable actually. No one is making money except for boat.
Okay.
Okay. Now and they are all running on VC money, right? This all VC money that's pumping them up, and they're showing the valuation kind of valuations that they are, right? And for them to ask people, you are not profitable, how can you ask this valuation? And it just shows, I mean, there's a sort of if I can use that term given by Ashni Grover, Doglapan, or hypocrisy, right? So I mean, this is another criticism that the sharks face, that most of them, barring one, are really not profitable. And I mean, no significant profit is. So this is not proper business. I mean, if you talk of business, it has to make money. Yes, it's understandable that many business models need time to make money. You don't make money right on the first day. You might need 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. That's all there. But then for them to also talk of profits and demand profits from before investing, that somehow shows the double standard. So this is another criticism. What's your take on this? And maybe then I'll follow.
So I think the fact remains, right, that if these people are already not making money, then are they, and they are basically running their ship on VC funds, right? So are they themselves sinking ships, and is a sinking ship the right sort of investor, right, that you'd want on your project, right? That also comes up. So I agree that, and another fact, right, because there is so much of visibility, right? Think of it, if there is one of these companies that ends up doing something like what Go Mechanic did, right?
Hmm.
So all the negative publicity around fudging of accounts, etc., that Go Mechanic came up with. So think of it, if the founder of Go Mechanic was on a show like this, right? And
Hmm.
telling people about ethics and stuff. And then tomorrow it comes in the news. How badly is the show going to suffer, right? And how
Hmm.
badly is the morale of future investors going to be that, okay, is
Yeah.
this the type of people that we are? So you are actually anchored on a number of personalities, and personalities are fallible,
Hmm.
right? So
True.
that
True.
risk also exists.
Very true. I also have slightly different take here on this. That see, yes, these sharks do not have a profitable venture, but then when they're investing, I mean, they're putting their real money and stake, right? So,
Mhm.
and mostly these startups are not. I mean, these are the early stages, and that's the reason they're coming for angel funding. So when they ask for profits, yes, I mean it does show up double standards, but I think if you're investing your money, you would also like to see whether you can earn profits or not, right? They're within their rights to do that. But what I think here is that I might what my I'm trying to diverge here is that it's better to have sharks who have built profitable businesses, right? So because then that will serve as a real motivation. Because see, if I'm not profitable, I'll not go in the show and talk of profits more. I'll talk of valuation more because I can show valuation numbers, right? Because I have VC money, right? So essentially what comes out is that valuation is more important. That's the reason you will see many startups actually coming into the show and saying within the next 3 years, 5 years, we are going to be a $1 billion company, and they're talking of valuation, they're not talking of money. That they've set the target for themselves that we want to be a unicorn in these years. And that's the problem. That's actually a problem, that if you're chasing to be a unicorn in this many years, that's a wrong metric to go on, right? I mean, you can be an extreme. So how do you become unicorn? The more money you get from VCs, the faster you become unicorn. And
True.
right? I mean, when someone like an Ashwini Grover claimed that he has built unicorns, he has basically received money from VCs, and that's the reason in 3 years BharatPe has been a unicorn. It's not about it
True.
making money, right? I really love the philosophy that, or what Nitin Kamath says, the Kamath brother from Zerodha, right? And I
Mhm.
think this is one. These are the kind of startup that really
Yeah.
should be glamorized, right? And I'm not saying because they're bootstrapped or they did not pick money from investors. I'm saying that because they're making real money. They're making real money. And what I was listening to Nitin Kamath here, and he was saying that, you know what, to make a business, you cannot make a business in 3 to 5 years. It takes much more time. In 10, 15 years, it takes that time. And when you're talking of making a business, you're talking more from a profit perspective. If you
Mhm.
build a sustainable, strong, resilient business, it takes more than a decade. He said that you can never make a business in 3, 5 years. Uh, and basically it was more of a dig on the unicorns who claim to be unicorns in 3 years or 5 years or maybe two
True.
years by getting money. So I think we need, and there are companies, there are founders who in terms of valuation may not have hit the $1 billion mark. Maybe they're in their millions of dollars, maybe 200, 300 million, but they're making money. The business is profitable. Maybe the business model is not such that VCs would pump in more money and they can claim to be a unicorn. But I guess those kind of founders should be glamorized. And I think the sharks in that show can be some of those people who are making real money on a sustained basis, right? I don't know whether I mean, the best would be like the Kamath brothers, someone people like the Kamath brothers on the show who are there, right? So I think if you have more sharks like this, they will talk more about making money, right? You will find some people in the sharks. Say, I heard Aman Gupta or even I think Piyush Mansal, where they tend to say that don't focus on being an unicorn. But not everyone have that gumption to actually say that because they themselves are sailing in that boat. So I think this is one thing. I mean, just to put out a better picture, because the conversations happening is a good thing, but you also need to have the right conversations,
Exactly.
right?
I agree.
And I think there uh, that needs to change. Yeah, your take, yes.
In fact, not a take on this. I was just thinking wild and wacky, right?
Yeah.
Which uh, is there a scope for something with proper regulatory approval, right? Could a new fund manager, right,
Hmm.
create a crowdsourced fund which then invests on which then rates the businesses which did not actually get funding here, And then there is a crowdsourced fund which actually funds those, right? As a viewer, I might feel that this seems like a very interesting idea. I'd like to promote this, right? I can't put in many lakhs and crores, but maybe I am willing to put in uh, from my end maybe 10,000, 50,000, or 1 lakh. I
Mm,
feel that I can invest 1 lakh in this, right? Is there fund? I mean, is there possibility of a fund
mm.
which would require lots of regulatory approval, SEBI and stuff, but then a fund which is made of retail investors, right, who put in money and say that, okay, now you pool maybe 100 retail investors who are willing to put in 50,000 each, right, and
But I
then
think
make
there are
that
already
available,
funds that exist of this way, right? They have
which
the
do
angel,
something like this.
yes, angel network that are
Okay,
already
no,
there. But
but I'm saying write it on the show, right? Because for that you need to actually be available and see a pitch. Here you're seeing a pitch on TV, and
sure.
I have that option that, okay, I see this pitch, I like it, I want to be part of those 100 people who invest in this, right?
But
So
then
a
who would
fractional
decide on
investment.
that? Who would decide on that fund? I mean, there has to be someone who will be responsible for,
Yes, a fund manager.
and
You do need.
yeah, and the fund manager again will think like an investor,
So
and that might mean that your money is pooled there, and you might think
yes,
let's fund it, but your fund manager might think otherwise, and
yeah.
ultimately
So
that fund manager will have the responsibility to increase the value of the fund. So,
decide. Yes,
so
yes.
that's
That's
again ultimately the same thing,
yeah. I mean,
right? But
just a
yeah,
thing of not letting
yeah.
the unsuccessful ones also totally fail. Right? There might be
But
there's
I think
some.
I think
Sorry.
it's also good that some of these are unsuccessful. I think it's also good that some of these actually don't move ahead
Yeah.
with this one. This will save a lot of time for the founders actually and a lot of resources. Maybe some of these ideas are not really that good. I mean, again, many of us tend to come up with ideas which are not really valuable. The market does not want. It's important that this those ideas fail actually. So it's good
So
that they actually fail. It actually is good for the ecosystem as well. I mean, that's
yes, yes, I do agree, and there are some ideas which deserve to fail. Right?
yes.
I have. I mean, I can't recall any example right now, but then I have seen some pitches which I felt that, oh boy, how did they even reach this far? Right?
Yes, yes,
Was there
yes.
no quality control? But sometimes maybe they put those there so that the ones which are successful get that contrast effect, and they seem much more valuable then, right? So,
Absolutely. That's
so
it. And I think one more thing is that I think we should add is that maybe the idea should fail, but we are not saying the entrepreneur should fail. And I think entrepreneurship is
true,
much more than that. It's about that grit, that resilience, right?
true.
Maybe this idea fails, and a true entrepreneur would start another, right? This idea might have failed, would start another, right? That's the grit, that is the resilience part of it. May not be immediately. Maybe the entrepreneur has to go back, maybe do a job just to settle a bit again, mobilize more resources, and then start again, because that's the blood of
True.
an entrepreneur. So that's there.
And
But we're saying that ideas, some ideas which do not deserve to be in the market or is not going to add value, they should fail as early as possible, so that the entrepreneur gets saves that time and resource for himself or herself to start again with something better, something new, with the experience that he or she has gained along the way in that. So
in fact, I think the idea of an entrepreneur being a risk taker and needs to be sort of wrapped in that wrapper which says that it is not
yes.
just someone who's a risk taker, right? It is someone who understands, right? Who understands the situation and has insights based on which that risk is what is that risk is acceptable. Then that level of risk is acceptable, right? There is this very old quote by Knight. One He was a economist or something, right? About uncertainty and risk, right? About how uncertainty is when you do not have clarity about the situation, right? Versus risk is the uncertainty that comes with a decision, but then risk is when you have an understanding of what all are the options, right? A risk is where you're saying that, okay, I know it can be A, B, or C, right?
Mm,
Uncertainty is you do not know whether it is A, B,
mm,
C, Z,
mm,
X, Y, right? You do not
mm,
have that idea. So risk is good. Risk is good for business, but then at the same time, risk needs to be covered with that insight of the person. That is that. I mean, so it needs to be a business pitched on maybe risk, but not on an uncertain future, right? Which is what would make successful entrepreneurs. And yeah, so I think
So
that's
yeah,
my.
totally, totally. So I think this with this maybe we can wrap this up today's episode on Shark Tank. Again, these are just our thoughts on this, but I guess both of us would agree that this show indeed is bringing in a much needed positive change in our culture, in our society. That yes, startups need to be celebrated. Yes, irrespective. I mean, no show is perfect. I mean, anything that we do is not perfect. But overall, if we see net, this is an important I guess this is an important what do you call tipping point in our culture and thinking and thankfully the TV is leading that
True.
television with all its criticism and saying that it's dying and everything. The fact is the hinterlands, the rural areas, tier two, tier three cities, TV still is strong position right now that TV holds. So and that's the contribution that TV has, and Shark Tank is bringing that positive change. More and more parents, I guess, would be welcoming to their kids starting to be business people or entrepreneurs or starting
True.
and I think and with maybe I'll end will end this with one of the quotes that I heard Zakir Khan, right? He's a comedian and he's a philosopher, right? I think he
Mhm.
said a beautiful thing where he said that it's not that parents are against our dreams, it's just that parents do not want to see their kids as poor,
True.
right? And it's so true. I mean, they're really not against the dreams, right? I mean, when people have some unconventional career dreams, they're not against that. They just don't want the spouses to fail or to be pure, because if this doesn't work, then what they do? So they want this kids to go for more traditional careers where there's a better chance or the
Stability.
odds for stability is high, right? So that's one thing. So, but again, this kind of shows does tend to give more confidence to parents, to the older generation, that yes, this also can be a career. And even if someone fails, there are a lot of other things that can do, because they acquire
True.
skills along the way, and that can
True.
be done, right? So maybe your final comments, and we'll end up this.
Well, I think you've summed it up very well. Right? Show like this, while understanding that it is a show, at least the thought process that it is bringing about, the sort of mental exercise that a viewer goes through, right, and that the little um, dose of adrenal, which of entrepreneurial adrenal, which gets pumped into the viewer's mind, right? And not even just viewers, people who are talking about it. I might not watch it, but then because my friends are talking about it, I might just get more excited, right? There is a little bit of some hormone which is going to get secreted, and maybe I start thinking a little bit more rationally, right? And so I think good thing, but take it with a pinch of salt. It's still a show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. So thank you, George. Thank you so much for
Right.
this. We'll be back again with another episode on another new topic.
Right. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.